Hello and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. It's Morgana here, and today I'm going to share with you how to paint this tranquil misty dawn lakeside scene painted using watercolour. But first, a quick reminder that Lois's fabulous new book, Landscapes in Watercolour, Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner, is available to purchase now from all good booksellers. Now, back to the video. I'm beginning with my paper taped onto my board and a simple outline of the landscape already faintly penciled in. This painting was inspired by one of my favourite places, the wetlands around the River Arun here in the UK. You can see a glimpse of these fabulous reed beds and reflections and that beautiful open sky. This is the perfect painting to try for those who are at the beginning of their watercolour journey, as it relies on only 4 colours, 4 brushes and some relatively simple techniques. I'm going to paint the background wet in wet, so I'm wetting the paper all over with my 2-inch flat brush, ready to paint the sky and the water all together. I wanted this scene to have a really lovely sort of ethereal dawn glow, so I'm painting my sky mostly with raw sienna, which is this lovely golden colour. I'm using a size 20 mop brush to begin, and I'm starting at the horizon line and sweeping the colour upwards. I'm leaving a little space at the top of the paper for now, where I'm going to add a little bit of blue. I don't particularly want to paint the blue over the raw sienna, as the colour would likely turn a little bit green, which is not ideal. I'm using a separate brush to add the blue. This is a small amount of ultramarine mixed with quite a large amount of water. Using separate brushes for different paints like this helps to prevent your colours from running together and becoming muddy. Moving on to the lower third of the paper, which will be the water in our wetland scene. I'm going to paint it in very much the same manner as the sky, as I want the still water to be reflecting the sky above. So I'm using some more raw sienna, and I'm adding a little ultramarine as well, this time at the lower edge of the paper. Now at this point the paper is still damp, which is the perfect time to add some loose reed beds. I'm using raw sienna again, a richer mix this time with less water, and I'm applying it to the damp paper lightly and loosely, and you can see how the edges of these marks are already softening down and diffusing really nicely into the wet paper. If you do find yourself struggling with controlling the larger brush in the smaller area, switch to a thinner brush with a fine point, like a liner or a rigger brush. A small round would also work really well for this part too. I'm also adding a little pale grey here. This is a colour called Grey of Grey by Holbein, which is an opaque grey watercolour paint. I really love this paint, so I do use it whenever I can, but it can be very easily substituted for other more regular colours such as Davy's grey, or even a little bit of opaque white or grey gouache. Once your reed beds look lovely and bright and full of texture, leave the entire painting to dry. Once it's fully dried out, as you see here, we can begin adding some detail. I'm using my sword liner brush today to do most of the work for this painting. For this slender tree, I love how the liner brush creates these sort of thin, whippy branches with such ease. The colour I'm using to paint these trees is a mixture of raw umber and ultramarine, with a little water added to soften the colour down, of course. Now, I chose to fill my skyline with mostly trees, partly because I think it works for the composition and partly because I just really enjoy painting them, and painting is of course all about joy. But of course it is up to you entirely how many trees you add into the painting at this point. The best advice I can probably give is to keep going until you're happy with how your painting looks. Once you're happy with your trees, it's time to start adding some detail into these reed beds. Still using your thin brush, Add some nice crisp reeds and rushes and some darker areas into the painting following the line of the water. I'm using a mixture of all the colours on my palette here to get a nice bit of colour variation and contrast in this area, using the raw umber and the ultramarine, but also because sticking to a limited palette such as this helps maintain the colour harmony across the paper. To add a loose pattern of reflections, hold your chosen brush lightly and drag it down the paper, mimicking the shapes that you already made before when the reeds and the rushes. This can be a slightly awkward technique to get a handle on straight away, so I do recommend practicing this on some scrap paper before committing to your painting. Once you've completed the reflections on one side of the painting, it's time to go ahead and repeat the same process on the other. I also decided to add some statuesque reeds and grasses into the foreground here, following the same technique for creating reeds and their corresponding reflections in the water below. Once you're happy with how the painting looks, all that remains to finish this scene is to add a couple of wild birds into the sky. So there we have it, the finished painting. Thank you everybody for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you enjoyed seeing this painting come to life. Don't forget that you can now order Lois's amazing watercolour book from all good retailers. Have a wonderful week everybody, wishing you all very happy painting.